The film begins by showing Kevin Garner, an investment banker. The bank he works for has just failed, leaving him jobless. He has also lost all his stocks and assets, and we find him sitting in a bar, distraught. Soon after, a woman named Molly approaches him and tells him that he looks like the saddest man she has ever seen. Annoyed, Kevin asks her to leave, but she keeps talking to him. He soon discovers that Molly is playing with her friends, who have challenged her to ask him out. After this encounter, they start talking about their lives, and Kevin becomes interested in her. He decides to seize the opportunity and asks her out on a formal date. Molly is surprised because he was only joking, but when she realizes that he is serious, she accepts the invitation. The scene shifts to many years later, showing the two now married. However, their marriage is in crisis because of the sudden disappearance of their son. Molly has become an alcoholic, and Kevin works at an office job he hates, where his boss often mistreats him. One day, the boss calls him and scolds him for his poor performance, insinuating that he may be fired soon. Frustrated, Kevin leaves and gets into his car. He receives a call from Molly, who scolds him for forgetting to pay his bills, and the two begin to argue. At that moment, another vehicle suddenly arrives and crashes into Kevin's car, knocking him unconscious. Kevin wakes up in an alley and sees an elderly man in front of him, who introduces himself as the Benefactor. Kevin laughs, but the Benefactor says he is serious and offers him a job. He takes him to a deserted street, resembling a post-apocalyptic world, and reveals that he has moved Kevin to another reality, a parallel universe. The two go to a restaurant, where Kevin notices that everyone is afraid of the Benefactor. A waitress named Tina serves them, but the Benefactor forces her to eat food. He then explains to Kevin that for every choice a person makes, there are infinite alternate realities. These decisions create infinite possibilities, meaning that everything a person can imagine exists somewhere and at some time. It also reveals that there is a force capable of transferring people between these realities. The Benefactor offers Kevin a job as a shifter in exchange for the life of his dreams. Shifters are people who have given up their souls and now work to torment other souls by moving them between different realities. Kevin discovers that all the other versions of himself have accepted the deal, and that Molly has also been shifted twice. However, Kevin is skeptical and asks the Benefactor to prove it by moving Tina to another location. The Benefactor agrees and activates a device called the diverter. Tina begins to cry and beg him not to do it, but she is moved to a universe where her parents never met, and she was never born. Kevin is shocked and finally realizes that the Benefactor is actually Satan. The Benefactor wants Kevin to become one of his shifters and offers him a luxurious life. However, Kevin refuses and seeks help from God. This enrages the Benefactor, who shouts that Kevin will pay for this. Kevin continues to pray until the Benefactor vanishes. Mortified, Kevin apologizes to Tina's parents and leaves the restaurant. 5 years later, Kevin is still trapped in this dystopian reality. He lives under a fake name because he is famous as the Kevin who refused. In this world, constant wars and destructive human activities have devastated most of the planet. Most people live in impoverished cities under the harsh control of Benefactor officials. Kevin does manual labor for a living and tries to recreate Bible verses from memory, secretly sharing them with his friend Gabriel, despite spreading the faith is illegal there. Gabriel is the only person he trusts and who knows his true identity. Despite the difficulties, Kevin remains optimistic that he will soon be reunited with his wife. One day, on his way home, Kevin meets an old man named Russo who is looking for his cat. Russo owns a movie theater where he broadcasts live feeds from alternate realities. Kevin books a session and begins observing people from different realities. Soon he sees different versions of Molly, each with a different profession. He notices one Molly wearing a necklace he gave her during their marriage, realizing that she is his wife. Seeing her after so long, Kevin begins to cry and touches the screen, but his time suddenly runs out. He asks for more time, but Russo tells him that his schedule is full and invites him to come back in a few days. In the evening, Kevin is in a supermarket and notices a child walking alone. Soon after, the child disappears, causing Kevin to panic. He immediately notifies the mother, but she is confused and indicates that her son is right next to her. Kevin insists that the child has been switched, but the woman thinks he is crazy and leaves. This episode reminds Kevin of the time when he was in a supermarket with Molly and their son, and the child suddenly disappeared. The police searched everywhere for him, but to no avail. In the present, Kevin suspects that it is the work of the shifters and believes that his son is still alive somewhere. On a cold night, he starts looking for food in the garbage piles. He is accidentally seen by his neighbor, Ranjit, who invites him to dinner. Arriving home, Kevin is surprised when Ranjit and his wife call him by name. It turns out that they are aware of his identity and know that he writes Bible verses and gives them to Gabriel. Kevin is startled and thinks they are shifters who want to harm him. But Ranjit apologizes and explains that he accidentally overheard his conversation with Gabriel once. He expresses his desire to educate his daughters about religion, admitting that he knows little about it. Ranjit has his daughters sing a Christian song, moving Kevin to tears. Afterward, Kevin begins sharing Bible stories with the family, explaining that God is simply testing their patience. He reassures them that once everything is over, they will be blessed with twice as much as they had before. After a while, an alarm sounds throughout the town. The family turns on the news and discovers that the Benefactor is coming for another recruit. The mayor warns everyone that if the Benefactor needs anything from them, they must obey or face death. The next morning, Kevin returns to Russo's movie theater and finds him still looking for his cat. The old man reveals that 4 years have passed, but he still hopes his cat will return. Kevin sits in a chair and begins watching live feeds from alternate worlds. After watching several videos, he notices the real Molly and asks Russo to find her coordinates. However, Russo replies that it is useless because, without the diverter, he cannot leave this world. Hearing this, Kevin remembers that the Benefactor is coming to town, so he plans to steal her diverter. In the evening, he meets Gabriel and asks him for a gun to confront the Benefactor. Gabriel thinks it is a suicide mission and tries to talk him out of it, but Kevin is firm in his decision. Eventually, Gabriel relents and offers him his gun. The next day, Kevin arrives in front of a cafe where the Benefactor is recruiting a boy. The place is guarded by the police, but he manages to sneak in. However, to his shock, he finds himself in a motel room instead of the cafe. He tries to get out, but the cops outside shoot him, forcing him to retreat. Kevin becomes frustrated and starts breaking things in the room, crying and scolding God for testing him in this way. Just then, the Benefactor appears and compliments Kevin on his determination. Kevin tries to shoot him, but the Benefactor teleports and dodges him. Kevin then tries to fight back physically, but is hit repeatedly and thrown to the ground. The Benefactor draws his gun and prepares to shoot Kevin, but suddenly, he hears God's voice. He discovers that God has followed him into the dystopian world, as Kevin is a special man. The man decides to give Kevin a second chance, allowing him to take the diverter with him and live the life of his dreams. The Benefactor warns Kevin that there are only 5 chances, otherwise he will lose his soul. Surprised by God's voice, the Benefactor vanishes. Kevin, wounded, picks up the diverter and prays to God to save him. He loses consciousness and wakes up in the hospital, with Ranjit and Gabriel visiting him. He recovers and tries to adjust to living in this world. One day, he uses the diverter to move to a different dimension, looking for Molly. He does this 4 times, but his wife in each dimension is different. Discouraged, he returns to the movie theater and asks Russo to find the real Molly. He sees his wife again in the video and notices that she has 2 children, one of whom is their son. This gives him hope, and he decides to use his last move to reunite with her. When the Benefactor finds out, he suddenly appears and tries to convince Kevin not to use his last displacement. Kevin ignores him and presses the button, infuriating him. He finds himself in a motel room and finds a letter addressed to him from God. The letter praises his faith and determination and assures him that his trial is over. Later, Kevin is reunited with Molly and their son, finally living the life he had always dreamed of. Don't miss a single moment of creativity. Subscribe to the channel now to join our community of enthusiasts. The video is over. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. See you next episode. Don't miss a single moment of creativity. Subscribe to the channel now to join our community of enthusiasts. The video is over. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. See you next episode.